when you compare my economy to this economy, not even a contest. We had the greatest economy in history, and now we have sort of a lousy economy, but the problem with the economy is the inflation. And anything you made, you more than gave back. We call it a 50% tax. It's a Biden tax. It's called an inflationary tax. And it's about 50%, and that's what it is, whether you like it or not, and it's too bad.
I guess we're making progress. Trump's lies outside of court, or at least lies about something that affects voters. Problem is that it gave the Biden camp the opportunity to point out that this was the press conference he was having 4 years ago about the unemployment rate under his administration.
Your economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, said this morning that the unemployment rate could be around 19%. Numbers we haven't seen since the Great Depression. What is your plan to get the country out of this ditch?
Well, I think we're going to have a great third quarter. It's going to be a transition. So when I say great, I think the transition is going to be really terrific, and we're going to take it into the fourth, and I think we're going to have potentially a great fourth quarter. There's tremendous pent-up demand. I don't know if Kevin said that or Larry Kudlow, but they see it, but I feel it. I think sometimes what I feel is better than what I think. But I view what we have now as obviously a period of, here we are. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Let's just go off of what I feel versus what I think. I mean, both are interchangeable based on who I'm talking to, so it really doesn't matter.
When I left office, we handed Crooked Joe the fastest economic recovery. It was the fastest recovery, think of this, economically, ever recorded. The stock market was at a record high. The price of gasoline was $2 and even less than that a gallon. Think of that. We had periods of time where it was $1.57, $1.87. How does that sound to you? But under $2 a gallon, the 30-year mortgage rate was at a record low, the lowest ever recorded, $2. Think of this, 2.65%. That's what your mortgage rates were. Now you can't get a mortgage. If you want to pay 8 or 9%, you still can't get them. And we had no inflation. We had the greatest economy in history.
Why doesn't he ever talk about why the economy and jobless numbers had to have a comeback? Maybe because he doesn't want to discuss how he ignored and mishandled the country's response to COVID that killed many Americans and the economy at the same time. His focus wasn't on the tough job of confronting a global pandemic, but trying to avoid any responsibility for it to benefit his political ambitions of capturing yet another term. The only people he was focused on making happy were the rich and corporations.
I do think that he was right when he said that the GOP, if he said that the GOP was plunging. You know, the GDP always grows because we have a huge economy. But in order to have paid for those tax cuts, the $2 trillion that he gave away, you know, the majority of them, 75, 80% of them to the wealthiest Americans, the GDP would have had to have grown by 6% for that to have happened. It didn't. That is what has caused some of the deficits we're experiencing, that he gave all of his friends all of this money.
There's never a way to pay for the money that our politicians transfer from most Americans' wallets to the pockets of the richest that happen to pay them to keep passing favorable tax cuts. And after they destroy the economy and hand it over to the next president, they blame them and repetitively claim things were great for the folks that were robbed.
And, you know, we had Senator Phil Gramm come back and testify before the Ways and Means Committee last week and could repeatedly asserted that the people in the lowest quintile of the economic spectrum had gotten $5,000 out of the tax cuts. And when I challenged him, he finally had to laugh and say, "Oh, I was kind of averaging it out." No, there's no averaging it out. This was a giveaway to the wealthiest people, to corporations. It didn't help small businesses, and he should stop asking people if they're better off now than they were 4 years ago, because everybody knows what they were doing 4 years ago as we hid from COVID and died,
right,
and found ourselves being evicted and our businesses closing. He should stop asking that question.
But still, polling shows that whether it's people's thoughts about the economy under Biden or Trump's courthouse campaigning, Trump's lead has shrunk and stands nearly even, with Biden even leading in some of those. So surrogates like Vivek Ramaswamy figured that they need to point it out to keep potential voters from high-stepping and staying at home.
And I say this to everybody who's working on the Trump campaign. I say this to everybody across the country. We can look at the poll numbers now and pat ourselves in the back. Forget about that. It's nonsense. The other side has been one step ahead consistently. And you know that red wave that never came in 2022? Well, you know what? I think we're at risk of something similar happening this year.